The morning sky of Kepler 442b burned orange as another energy blast hit the city's protective shield. The tall crystal towers of Lumencrest shook with each impact. Inside the central spire, Elder Veltara watched her people die slowly. The Valen were beautiful creatures. Their skin looked like living crystal that changed colors with their emotions. Right now, most of them glowed deep blue, the color of fear. They had long, thin bodies and moved like dancers even when they were scared. For thousands of years they had lived in peace on their green world, but peace meant nothing to the Kreks. The insect-like aliens had arrived 6 months ago in massive black ships. They wanted the rare crystals that grew naturally on this planet. The crystals powered their war machines and made them stronger. The Kreks did not ask. They simply took. Veltara's hands shook as she touched the communication crystal. Her people were dying, and she could do nothing to stop it. The Valen had never learned to fight. They solved problems by talking and singing together. But the Kreks did not want to talk. "Elder," said her assistant Nixara, "the south shield is failing. We have maybe 2 days before they break through." Veltara closed her large silver eyes. 2 days. In 2 days, her entire race would be slaves or dead. The thought made her crystal skin turn black with despair. "There must be something we can do," she whispered. "We could try the old songs again," Nixara suggested. "The harmony weapons our ancestors made." "Those songs are just legends," Veltara replied. "And even if they were real, we do not remember how to sing them." Another blast hit the shield. This one was stronger than the others. Cracks appeared in the crystal dome that protected their city. Through the cracks, they could see the massive Kreks war machines moving closer. The Kreks looked like giant ants, standing on 2 legs. They were covered in black armor that seemed to be part of their skin. Their weapons were alive, strange biomechanical things that grew from their arms. They moved in perfect groups, like a hive mind controlling them all. Veltara had tried to talk to their leader, a huge Kreks called General Mordek, but the creature only laughed at her words. "Your planet will feed our empire," he had said. "Your people will work until they die. This is the way of the strong." Now, as another blast shook the spire, Veltara made a decision that would change everything. "Nixara, prepare the quantum transmitter." Her assistant's crystal skin turned white with shock. "Elder, that machine has not been used for centuries. We do not even know if it still works." "Then we will find out," Veltara said. "If we are going to die, let us at least tell the galaxy what happened here." They climbed to the top of the spire, where the ancient transmitter waited. It was a beautiful machine made of pure crystal and rare metals. Their ancestors had built it to talk to other worlds, but those worlds had never answered. Most Valen believed they were alone in the universe. Veltara placed her hands on the crystal surface. The machine began to glow with soft light. She could feel it reaching out across the stars, searching for anyone who might listen. "What should we say?" Nixara asked. Veltara thought carefully. If anyone was out there, what would make them care? About a dying race they had never met. "We are the Valen of Kepler 442b, she began, her voice being carried by the crystal's energy. "We are a peaceful people who have never hurt anyone. But now we are dying. The Kreks are destroying our world and killing our children. We have tried everything we can think of. We have no weapons. We have no army. We have nothing to offer except our gratitude to anyone who might help us. Please, if someone is listening, we do not want to die. Anyone, please help us." The message went out into space, traveling faster than light itself. Veltara did not know if anyone would hear it. She did not know if anyone would care. But it was all she could do. Far away, on a small space station orbiting Earth's moon, Lieutenant Yujiwan was having a boring night. He worked the late shift monitoring deep space communications. Most nights he heard nothing but static and the occasional message from Earth's colonies. But tonight was different. The quantum receiver began picking up a signal from deep space. Jiwan had never heard anything like it. The signal was beautiful, like someone singing very far away. But when the computer translated it into words, his blood went cold. A peaceful alien race was being destroyed by invaders. They were asking for help from anyone who might listen. Jiwan played the message 3 times to make sure he understood it correctly. Then he did something that would change the course of galactic history. He forwarded the message to Earth Defense Command with a Priority 1 rating. Within hours, the message reached Admiral Park Sung-woo at Earth Defense Headquarters. The Admiral was a hard man who had fought in 3 wars, but the violent message made him sit quietly for a long time. "Sir?" asked his aide, Colonel Lee Dae-hyun. "What are your orders?" Admiral Park stood up and walked to the window. Outside, he could see Earth's blue oceans and white clouds. Somewhere out there, innocent people were dying while their killers grew stronger. "Send a message to the 32nd Orbital Drop Division," he said finally. "Tell Captain Lee Do-yeon to prepare his men for immediate deployment. Authorization, Operation Falling Star." "Sir, the 32nd is our best unit. Are we really going to risk them for aliens we have never met?" Admiral Park turned around. His eyes were hard as steel. "Colonel, 20 years ago my home city was burning while enemy soldiers killed civilians in the streets. Do you know why I am alive today?" "No, sir." "Because soldiers from another country dropped out of the sky to save us. They did not know us. We could not pay them. They came because it was the right thing to do." The Admiral walked back to his desk. "Now it is our turn. Send the message." Back on Kepler 442b, Veltara stood on her balcony watching the Krex machines move closer to the city. The shield was weakening with every blast. Soon, it would fail completely. She did not know that her message had been heard. She did not know that across the galaxy, human soldiers were preparing to risk their lives for people they had never met. She only knew that tomorrow, her people would probably be dead. But sometimes, when the darkness seems complete, help comes from the most unexpected places. Sometimes help falls from the sky. 3 weeks later, Captain Lee Do-hyun stood in the briefing room of the Earth Defense Force ship Seoul's Fury. Around him sat 200 of the best soldiers Earth had ever trained. These were the men and women of the 32nd Orbital Drop Division, the most elite fighting unit in human space. "Listen up," Major Han Kyung-min said as he activated the holographic display. "This is Kepler 442b, located in the Outer Rim territories, home to a species called the Valen." The display showed a beautiful green world with crystal cities and flowing rivers. It looked peaceful and perfect. But as the image zoomed in, everyone could see the dark ships surrounding the planet like a disease. "The Valen sent us a distress call 3 weeks ago," the Major continued. "They are being invaded by something called the Krex Dominion. Intelligence says the Krex are a hive mind species that conquers worlds for their resources." Sergeant Kim Min-hyuk raised his hand. "Sir, what do we know about Krex military capabilities?" "Good question, Sergeant." The Major changed the display to show images of Krex soldiers and vehicles. They use biomechanical weapons and armor. Think of giant insects with living guns. They are tough, but they have weaknesses. They rely too much on group tactics and have trouble adapting to unexpected situations. Private First Class Song Dae-hyun leaned forward. "How many of them are we facing, sir?" "Current estimates put Krex ground forces at around 50,000 troops, with full orbital support." The room went quiet. Everyone was doing the math in their heads. 200 humans against 50,000 aliens. "I know what you are thinking," the Major said. "But remember, we have advantages they do not expect. We are faster, smarter, and more adaptable than any hive mind species." Corporal Park Jisoo studied the images of the Valen. They looked fragile and beautiful, like living art. "Sir, what about the Valen themselves? Can they help us fight?" Dr. Choi Seojin, the unit's xenobiologist, answered that question. "The Valen appear to be completely pacifist. They have no military and no weapons. Their entire culture is based on harmony and cooperation. They literally do not know how to fight. So we are protecting people who cannot protect themselves," said Medic Lim Hee-jin, "against an enemy that wants to enslave them." "That is correct," Major Han said. "Our mission is simple. break the siege of their capital city, hold the line, until reinforcements arrive, and evacuate their leadership if necessary. Tech Sergeant Nam Wanho was studying the tactical display. "Sir, what about air support? Do we have any backup coming?" "The main fleet is 3 months out," the major replied. "We are on our own until then." Captain Lee Do-hyun finally spoke. Was a quiet man who did not waste words. "What is our drop zone?" "Right into the middle of their capital city, Lumencrest. The Kreks have it surrounded with siege engines. We go in at night, hit them fast and hard, and break their lines before they know what happened." The soldiers nodded. They had done impossible missions before, but this one felt different. This time, they were fighting for people they had never met on a world they had never seen, against enemies they knew almost nothing about. "One more thing," Major Han said. "Command wants me to remind you that this is a volunteer mission. Anyone who wants to stay on the ship can do so without shame. No one will think less of you." Not a single soldier moved. Captain Do-hyun looked around the room and felt proud of his people. "Questions?" the major asked. Sergeant Kim Min-hyuk raised his hand again. "Sir, why are we doing this? These aliens cannot pay us. Earth gets nothing out of this fight. Why risk our lives?" Major Han was quiet for a moment. Then he said, 20 years ago, my little sister was trapped in a burning building during the Beijing crisis. A rescue worker ran into the flames to save her, even though he did not know her name. When I asked him why he did it, he said, "Because someone had to." That rescue worker died saving my sister and 5 other children. The major looked at each soldier in turn. Sometimes doing the right thing is reason enough. After the briefing, the soldiers prepared for the drop. Each man and woman checked their gear carefully. Their weapons were the best Earth could make: plasma rifles, smart grenades, and armor that could stop almost anything. Dr. Choi Seojin worked with Corporal Park Jisoo to program universal translators. They did not know how to speak to the Valen, but the computers might be able to figure it out. Private Song Dae-hyun cleaned his heavy plasma cannon for the 5th time. The weapon was almost as big as he was, but in his hands it looked like a toy. Medic Lim Hee-jin packed extra medical supplies. She did not know what Valen blood looked like, but she would be ready to save anyone who needed help. Tech Sergeant Nam Wanho loaded viruses into his computer system. If he could hack Krek's communications, it might give them an edge in the coming battle. As the Soul's Fury approached Kepler 442b, everyone gathered in the drop bay. 200 soldiers stood next to 200 drop pods. Each pod was just big enough for one person and their gear. When they launched, the pods would fall through space like meteors, too fast and too small for most weapons to hit. Captain Do-hyun walked among his soldiers, checking on each one. These people trusted him with their lives. In a few hours, many of them might be dead. But they had volunteered for this. They believed it was worth the risk. "Sir," Corporal Park Jisoo said as she sealed her pod, "what if we are too late? What if the Valen are already dead?" "Then we make the Kreks pay for it," Do-hyun replied simply. The ship's speakers crackled to life. "All drop teams, this is the bridge. We are approaching the drop zone. Enemy forces are heavy around the target. Expect immediate contact upon landing." Through the ship's windows, they could see Kepler 442b growing larger. It really was a beautiful world, with green forests and crystal cities that sparkled in the sunlight. But they could also see the dark Kreks ships orbiting the planet like vultures. "Drop teams, prepare for launch in T-5 minutes." The soldiers climbed into their pods. The metal containers sealed shut with a hiss of pressurized air. Inside each pod, a soldier waited in the dark, thinking about home and the people they were about to fight for. T-1 minute. Captain Do-hyun closed his eyes and thought about the Valen message they had received. A peaceful people asking for help from strangers. It reminded him why he had become a soldier in the first place. Launch. 200 pods shot out of the Soul's Fury like bullets. They fell toward the planet below, invisible against the star-filled sky. Inside his pod, Captain Do-hyun watched his altimeter count down the distance to the ground. Below them, the city of Lumencrest glowed with crystal light. Around the city, Krek siege engines fired continuously at the failing shields. The aliens had no idea that help was falling toward them at terminal velocity. In her tower, Elder Veltara felt another blast shake her home. The shield would fail, soon. She had given up hope that anyone would answer her call for help. She was about to be very surprised. The first Kreks to die never saw what killed him. Captain Lee Do-hyun's drop pod smashed through the roof of a Kreks command center at 3 in the morning local time. The pod's explosive bolts fired, and Do-hyun rolled out with his plasma rifle already firing. 3 Kreks soldiers were vaporized before they could even turn around. All across the siege lines, 200 more pods crashed down like falling stars. The Kreks had been watching the sky for ships, not individual soldiers. They were completely unprepared for what happened next. Sergeant Kim Min-hyuk landed next to a massive siege engine that had been pounding the city's shields all day. The machine was 3 stories tall and covered in living armor that pulsed like a heartbeat. To the Kreks it was unstoppable. To Min-hyuk, it was just a target. He pulled out 4 thermite charges and stuck them to the machine's legs. The biomechanical creature tried to swat him with its weapon arms, but Min-hyuk was already running. When the charges exploded, the siege engine collapsed like a cut-down tree. "One down," he said into his radio, moving to the next target. Private First Class Song Dae-hyun landed in the middle of a Kreks patrol. 20 insect soldiers surrounded his pod, clicking their mandibles and raising their bioweapons. They expected to capture or kill one lost human. Instead, Song pulled out his heavy plasma cannon. The weapon was as long as a man and fired bolts of pure energy. Each shot could cut through a tank. Song did not bother aiming carefully. There were too many targets to miss. The plasma bolts tore through the Krek soldiers like they were made of paper. In 30 seconds, 20 Kreks were dead, and Song was moving toward the city center. Tech Sergeant Nam Wonho had a different job. While the others fought, he found a Kreks communication tower and plugged his computer into their network. The aliens used biomechanical systems that were part machine and part living creature. "Interesting," he muttered as his programs went to work. The Kreks computer tried to fight back, but human viruses were nothing like what it had ever seen before. Within minutes, Nam had control of their entire communication system. He sent false orders to Kreks units across the battlefield. Some were told to retreat. Others were ordered to attack their own allies. The perfect coordination that made the Kreks so dangerous began to fall apart. Medic Lim Hyejin landed near the city's main gate, where wounded Valen civilians were gathered. The crystal-skinned aliens looked at her in fear and wonder. They had never seen anything like a human before. Hyejin did not speak their language, but she understood pain. She knelt beside a young Valen whose crystal arm was cracked and bleeding strange silver blood. Gently, she began to treat the wound. The young Valen looked up at her with large silver eyes. Through gestures, Hyejin tried to tell him that everything would be okay. That help had finally arrived. Corporal Park Jisoo had landed closest to the city center. Her job was to find the Valen leaders and establish communication. As she ran through the crystal streets, she saw the beauty and terror of this alien world. The buildings were made of living crystal that grew from the ground like trees. They glowed with soft light and sang with harmonic frequencies. But many were cracked and broken from Krek's weapons fire. She found the central spire just as a massive explosion shook the city. A Krek siege engine had broken through the outer defenses and was advancing toward the government building. "Not on my watch," she said, pulling out a smart grenade. The grenade flew through the air and attached itself to the siege engine's sensor cluster. When it exploded, the machine went blind and began firing randomly. Krek soldiers scattered as their own weapon turned against them. Inside the spire, Elder Veltara heard the explosions getting closer. She expected Krek soldiers to break down her door at any moment. Instead, she heard footsteps on the stairs, lighter than Krek's feet but heavier than Valen. The door opened, and a figure in strange armor entered her chamber. The being was shorter than a Valen, but taller than a Krek's. Its face was hidden behind a helmet with glowing red eyes. Veltara's crystal skin turned white with fear. Was this some new kind of Krek soldier? Then the figure reached up and removed its helmet. Underneath was a face unlike anything she had ever seen. The skin was soft and pink, not crystal or chitin. The eyes were small and brown, but filled with intelligence and kindness. "Are you the leader of this city?" the figure asked. Somehow, Veltara could understand the words, though she had never heard this language before. "Yes," she whispered. "I am Elder Veltara. Are you here to help us?" The figure smiled, and Veltara felt hope for the first time in months. "I am Captain Lee Do-hyun of the Earth Defense Force. We received your message." "But how?" "No one has ever answered our calls before." "Someone always answers," Do-hyun said. "You just have to call the right people." Outside, the battle was turning in humanity's favor. The Kreks had expected to face helpless civilians, not trained soldiers, with advanced weapons. Their siege lines were breaking apart as human forces struck at key targets. Sergeant Min-hyuk had destroyed 6 siege engines and was working on his 7th. Each explosion lit up the night sky and gave hope to the Valen trapped in the city. Private Song had carved a path of destruction through the Kreks ranks. His plasma cannon had never stopped firing, and alien bodies littered the ground behind him. Tech Sergeant Nam continued his electronic warfare, turning the Kreks' own communication system against them. Half their forces were now attacking the wrong targets or retreating from positions they should have held, but the humans were not invincible. Medic Hyejin was treating her 3rd wounded soldier when a Kreks warrior managed to get close to the city gates. The insect creature was 8 feet tall and armed with weapons that grew from its own arms. It charged toward the wounded Valen civilians, ready to kill everything in sight. Hyejin stepped between the alien and the refugees, her medical equipment forgotten. She only had a sidearm, but she was not going to let innocents die. The Kreks warrior laughed, a horrible clicking sound, and raised its bioweapons. Then a plasma bolt took its head clean off. Private Song lowered his cannon and nodded to Hyejin. "Stay close to the civilians, Doc. We will keep the bugs away from you." As dawn broke over Kepler 4 Mavrahinu B, the Kreks siege was in ruins. Their command centers were destroyed, their communication network was compromised, and their siege engines were burning wrecks. But more importantly, they had learned something that terrified them. Somewhere in the galaxy was a species that would travel across the stars to fight for complete strangers, beings who would risk their own lives to protect people they had never met. In the central spire, Elder Veltara looked out at her city. For the first time in months, the crystal buildings were not shaking from enemy fire. The shields were holding. Her people were safe. She turned to Captain Do-hyun, who was coordinating the defense from her chambers. "Why?" she asked. "Why did you come here? We cannot repay you. We have nothing to offer." Do-hyun looked up from his tactical display. His armor was scorched, and his face was tired, but his eyes were still kind. "Elder Veltara, my people have a saying. Someone has to." "That is reason enough." Outside, Corporal Park Jisoo was setting up communication equipment to call for reinforcements. Private Song was teaching young Valen how to hide from Kreks patrols. Medic Hyejin was training Valen healers to treat human wounds. The battle was won, but the war was just beginning. The Kreks would return with more ships and more soldiers. Earth's reinforcements were still months away. But for now, the crystal city of Lumencrest was safe. 200 human soldiers had fallen from the sky, like angels of war, and nothing would ever be the same again. 2 weeks after the initial drop, Captain Lee Do-hyun stood on the walls of Lumencrest and watched the horizon burn. The Kreks were coming back, and they were angry. "Contact report," he said into his radio. 3 hive fleets just dropped out of hyperspace, came Tech Sergeant Nam Wonho's voice from the command center. "I count at least 60 ships, sir. Looks like they brought friends." Do-hyun closed his eyes for a moment. 60 ships meant hundreds of thousands of Krek soldiers. His force was down to 180 effective fighters after the initial battle. The math was not good. "Sir," Sergeant Kim Min-hyuk appeared beside him on the wall. "The outer perimeter sensors are picking up movement. Looks like they are landing troops about 10 kilometers out." "How many troops?" All of them, sir. This is not a siege anymore. This is an invasion. Down in the city, things were changing in ways no one had expected. The Valen were learning what it meant to fight for survival. Elder Veltara had set up councils to coordinate their defense. For the first time in their history, her people were talking about violence. Dr. Choi Seojin worked with Valen scientists in their crystal laboratories. She had discovered something amazing about their harmonic abilities. They could disrupt Krek's neural networks with the right frequencies. "Show me again," she said to the Valen scientist Nixara. Nixara placed her crystal hands on a harmonic resonator and began to sing. The device glowed and sent out waves of sound that human ears could barely hear. A captured Krek's bioweapon on the table began to shake and then stopped working completely. "The frequency disrupts their living technology," Nixara explained through the translation device, "but we would need to be very close to enemy forces, and we would have to sing together, hundreds of us." "What if I could amplify your voices?" Dr. Choi asked. "Human technology combined with Valen harmony. We could turn your entire city into a weapon." Meanwhile, Medic Lim Hyejin was working in the refugee centers. Thousands of Valen had fled from the outer settlements as the Krek's invasion spread. She had been treating wounded civilians for days, learning about their biology. A young Valen child approached her table. His name was Kyulin, and he had been asking questions about the human soldiers all week. "Miss Hyejin," he said in broken human language, "why do your people fight for us?" She knelt down to his level. "Because fighting for others is what makes us human, Kyulin. It is who we are. But you get hurt. You die. For people you do not know." "Yes," she said simply. "Sometimes we die, but sometimes we save entire worlds. That makes it worth the risk." The child's crystal skin shifted from blue to gold, the color of wonder and hope. Private First Class Song De-hyun had set up his heavy weapons position on the main boulevard leading to the city center. His plasma cannon was mounted on a tripod, pointed toward the main gate. Around him, other human soldiers prepared defensive positions. A group of young Valen males approached his position. They looked nervous but determined. "Human Song," their leader said. "We want to help fight." Song looked up from his weapon maintenance. "This is not your way, friend. You are peaceful people." "We were peaceful," the Valen replied. "But peaceful people can still choose to protect their families. Teach us." Song considered this. The Valen could not fight like humans. They were not built for violence, but they could help in other ways. "Okay," he said finally. "You cannot use weapons like these, but you can carry ammunition. You can watch for enemies. You can help wounded soldiers get to safety." The young Valen nodded eagerly. For the first time in their history, they were learning to be warriors. In the command center, Major Han Kyungmin coordinated the overall defense. Reports were coming in from all over the planet. The Kreks were not just attacking Lumencrest anymore. They were hitting every Valen settlement simultaneously. "Sir," Corporal Park Jisoo reported, "I have been monitoring Krek's communications. They are calling in forces from 3 other star systems. This is not just about our planet anymore." "What do you mean?" "They know about Earth now, sir. They are treating humanity as a major threat. Word is spreading through their empire that there is a new species that fights for other races." Major Han felt a chill. Earth's location was supposed to be classified, but the Kreks were not stupid. If they could track the human fleet back to Earth, "Send a message to Admiral Park," he ordered. "Tell him the Kreks now consider Earth a priority target. He needs to accelerate the reinforcement schedule." Outside the city, the first wave of Krek's ground forces appeared on the horizon. They looked like a black sea flowing across the green landscape. At the front were massive biomechanical walkers that stood 50 feet tall. Behind them marched thousands of Krek soldiers in perfect formation. Captain Do-hyun activated the citywide communication system. "All units, this is Do-hyun. Remember your training. Make every shot count, protect the civilians, and make these bugs regret coming to our fight." The battle began with artillery fire. Krek's bio-cannons sent explosive rounds into the city's outer districts. The crystal buildings shattered like glass, filling the air with deadly fragments. Human forces responded with precision strikes. Sergeant Minhyuk had placed explosive charges throughout the approach routes. As the Krek's walkers advanced, the ground beneath them erupted in massive explosions. But there were too many enemies. For every walker that fell, 10 more took its place. Jisoo, are those harmonic weapons ready? Do-hyun asked over the radio. Dr. Choi says 5 more minutes, sir. The Violin are still learning the new frequencies. We might not have 5 minutes. The Kreks reached the outer walls. Their bioweapons began melting through the crystal barriers like acid. Krek soldiers poured through the breaches, only to meet concentrated human fire. Private Song's plasma cannon never stopped firing. Each shot killed multiple enemies, but they kept coming. The young Valen who had volunteered to help ran ammunition to his position, their crystal skin glowing red with determination. Medic Hyjin had moved her aid station closer to the fighting. She treated human soldiers and Valen civilians side by side, teaching the local healers how to deal with combat wounds. We need those harmonic weapons now, Do-hyun shouted over the sound of battle. Ready, came Dr. Choi's voice. All Valen singers begin the harmony. From across the city, hundreds of Valen voices joined in song. But this was not the gentle music of peace. This was a song of war. The harmony was amplified by human technology until it became a weapon of pure sound. The effect on the Kreks was immediate. Their bioweapons stopped working. Their coordination broke down as the harmonic frequencies disrupted their hive mind connections. Individual Krek soldiers began making mistakes, fighting each other or simply standing still in confusion. It is working, Nixara shouted in excitement. The harmony is breaking their connection. But the victory was temporary. High above the planet, Krek's hive ships began targeting the harmonic transmitters. Energy beams from space destroyed the amplification towers one by one. As the last transmitter fell, the Krek's coordination returned. They resumed their advance with mechanical precision. Fall back to the second perimeter, Do-hyun ordered. We make our stand at the city center. As human and Valen forces retreated through the crystal streets, something unexpected happened. The Valen civilians did not run away. Instead, they began helping the soldiers. They carried wounded fighters to safety. They shared their knowledge of secret passages through the city. They sang support songs that helped the humans stay calm under pressure. Elder Veltara herself appeared at the command post, carrying medical supplies. Elder, you should be in the shelters, Major Han told her. This is my city, she replied firmly. These are my people. I will not hide while others fight for our freedom. The battle raged through the day and into the night. Human soldiers held impossible positions with nothing but skill and determination. Valen civilians showed courage they never knew they had. But the numbers were overwhelming. For every Kreks that fell, 5 more took its place. The human force was down to 120 effective soldiers. As the sun set on Kepler 442b, Captain Do-hyun looked at his tactical display. The Kreks had taken most of the city. His people were running out of ammunition. The Valen were exhausted from singing their harmonic songs, but they were still fighting, still protecting innocent lives, still proving that sometimes someone has to stand up against impossible odds. The real battle was just beginning. 2 months into the siege, the city of Lumencrest had become a fortress of broken crystal and human steel. Captain Lee Do-hyun stood in what used to be Elder Veltara's beautiful council chamber, now converted into a command bunker. Battle damage covered the walls and the floor was cracked from constant artillery fire. Status report, he said to his surviving officers. Sergeant Kim Min-hyuk looked exhausted. His armor was patched in a dozen places and his left arm was in a sling. 87 effective soldiers remaining, sir. We lost 3 more yesterday when that walker broke through Sector 7. Ammunition? Running low on everything except determination. Private Song Dae-hyun replied. Even his massive frame looked smaller now, worn down by weeks of constant fighting. I have maybe 50 shots left for the big gun. Tech Sergeant Nam Wonho, was bent over his computer systems, trying to maintain their communication network. "Sir, I have intercepted Krek's transmissions. They are getting reinforcements from the core worlds. But here is the interesting part. Their high command is coming personally." "What do you mean?" "The Overlord himself is coming. Sith Karan, Supreme Commander of this entire sector. They have never brought in leadership this high for a single planet." Dr. Choi Seojin looked up from her research notes. "That means we are more than just a local problem now. We have proven that humans will fight for other species. That threatens their entire expansion strategy." Elder Veltara entered the bunker, carrying a tray of the crystal fruit that had become their main food source. Her once pristine crystal skin was dulled with fatigue, but her eyes still held hope. "The Harmony Singers are ready for another attempt," she reported. "Nixara believes she has found a frequency that can disrupt their hive ships directly." "How close would you need to get?" Captain Do-hyun asked. "Very close, within a few hundred meters of their command ship." Do-hyun considered this. Getting that close to a Krek's hive ship was suicide. But if it worked, they might be able to turn the tide of the entire battle. "We will find a way," he decided. Outside the bunker, medic Lim Hyejin worked in her field hospital. The crystal buildings had been converted into medical wards where human soldiers and Valen civilians recovered together. She had learned more about alien anatomy in 2 months than most doctors learned in a lifetime. A young Valen child named Kulin helped her distribute medicine. He had become her unofficial assistant, learning human medical techniques with remarkable speed. "Miss Hyejin," he said, "my brother wants to join the Harmony Singers. He says he wants to fight like the humans do." "Fighting is not just about weapons," she replied gently. "Your Harmony Singers are some of the bravest people I have ever met. They walk into battle with nothing but their voices. But so many humans have died protecting us. It does not seem fair." Hyejin knelt down beside the child. "Kulin, do you know why we came here?" "To help us?" "Yes. But it is more than that. We came because we believe that good people should protect each other, no matter what species they are. When you grow up, you will do the same thing. You will protect others who cannot protect themselves. That is how the cycle continues." The child's crystal skin shifted to gold, the color of understanding. 3 days later, everything changed. The massive Krek's command ship Death's Truth entered orbit around Kepler 442b. It was 10 kilometers long and armed with weapons that could destroy continents. But more importantly, it carried Overlord Zithkaran himself. The Overlord was ancient even by Krek standards. He had conquered 17 star systems and enslaved dozens of species. He had never failed to crush resistance wherever he found it. He studied the tactical displays showing the siege of Lumencrest with growing frustration. "Explain to me," he said to his subordinates, "how 87 aliens have held an entire city for 2 months against 50,000 of our finest warriors." "Sir," replied General Mordek, "these humans fight like nothing we have encountered before. They do not follow standard tactical doctrine, they adapt constantly, and they seem to have no fear of death." "Everything dies," Sheath Karan said coldly. "These humans will learn this truth." Down in the city, Tech Sergeant Nam had been monitoring the command ship's communications. "Sir," he reported to Captain Do-hyun, "I found something. The Overlord is planning a final assault tomorrow at dawn. Everything they have left all at once." "How many?" 30,000 ground troops, full orbital bombardment support, and bioweapon strikes on all civilian shelters." The room went quiet. Everyone understood what this meant. The Kreks were done playing games. They were going to sterilize the entire city. "There is more," Nam continued. "I found the location of their command nexus. It is in a bunker complex about 5 kilometers north of here. If we could take it out, we could disrupt their entire command structure," Do-hyun finished. "But it would be a suicide mission." "Sir," Sergeant Min-hyuk said quietly, "we have been on a suicide mission since the day we landed. At least this way, we take them with us." "Captain," Do-hyun looked around the room at his people. 87 soldiers, all of them volunteers, all of them willing to die for strangers. He felt proud and heartbroken at the same time. Nixara, he said to the Valen scientist, how many singers would you need for the harmonic weapon? At least 50, all singing in perfect harmony, and they would need to be within direct range of the command ship. What would happen to them? Nixara's crystal skin shifted to deep blue. The harmonic feedback would kill them, all of them. Elder Veltara stepped forward. Captain Do-hyun, I will lead the singers myself. Elder, no, we cannot ask you to. You did not ask, she interrupted. We are offering, just as you offered. Your lives for us, this is our choice. The final battle began before dawn. Captain Do-hyun led 30 soldiers in a desperate assault on the Krek's command bunker. They moved through the ruins of the outer city like ghosts, using every trick they had learned in months of urban warfare. The bunker was heavily defended. Biomechanical turrets tracked their approach, and Krek's elite guards patrolled in perfect formation. But the humans had advantages the Kreks did not expect. They had learned to fight like Valen, using stealth and misdirection instead of brute force. Sergeant Minhyuk's demolition charges opened a hole in the bunker wall. Private Song's plasma cannon cleared the entrance. One by one, the human soldiers disappeared into the underground complex. At the same time, Elder Veltara led 50 Valen singers to the highest spire of the city. From there, they could direct their harmony at the command ship orbiting overhead. You ready? She asked her people. They nodded, their crystal skin glowing with determination. They knew they would not survive what came next, but they also knew that their sacrifice might save their world. The singing began. It was the most beautiful and terrible sound anyone had ever heard. 50 Valen voices joined in perfect harmony, amplified by the last working transmitter in the city. The sound reached up through the atmosphere and struck the Krek's command ship like a physical blow. On the bridge of Death's Truth, Overlord Zithkaran felt his connection to the hive mind begin to break down. His subordinates clutched their heads, in pain as the harmonic frequencies disrupted their neural networks. "Destroy that city," he screamed. "Kill them all." But it was too late. The harmony had spread through the ship's biomechanical systems. Weapons misfired. Navigation failed. The great ship began to fall toward the planet below. In the command bunker, Captain Do-hyun fought his way through waves of Krek's defenders. His plasma rifle had run out of ammunition, so he used a captured bioweapon. When that failed, he fought with his hands. He found Overlord Zithkaran in the central command chamber. The ancient alien was twice his size and covered in armor that had never been penetrated. But his connection to the hive mind was broken, and for the first time in centuries he was fighting alone. "Why?" the Overlord demanded as they circled each other. "Why do you fight for these crystal creatures? They cannot repay you. They offer nothing." Do-hyun drew his combat knife. It was a small weapon against such a massive enemy. But it was all he had left. "You would not understand. You take everything by force. We give everything by choice. Sentiment will not save you. Maybe not. But it will save them." The fight was brief and brutal. Overlord Zithkaran had centuries of experience, and natural weapons that could tear through human armor. But Captain Do-hyun had something the alien did not understand. He was fighting for something bigger than himself. In the end, they killed each other. Do-hyun's knife found the gap between the Overlord's armor plates, while the Overlord's claws tore through the human's chest. They died together in the ruins of the command bunker, surrounded by the wreckage of both their armies. Above them, the great command ship crashed into the ocean, taking thousands of Kreks with it. Across the planet, Krek's forces lost coordination and began retreating to their remaining ships. In the crystal spire, Elder Veltara and her singers collapsed as the harmonic feedback overwhelmed them. They had given their lives to save their world, just as the humans had given their lives to save strangers. The siege of Lumencrest was over, but the cost had been terrible. Of the 200 soldiers who had fallen from the sky, only 31 survived. Of the 50 Valen singers, none lived to see their victory, but they had won. Against impossible odds, with nothing but courage and determination, they had defeated an empire's finest forces. The galaxy would never be the same. 1 year later, Sergeant Kim Min-hyuk stood in the center of Lumencrest and watched the sun rise over a changed world. Where once there had been broken crystal and battle damage, new buildings grew from the ground like living trees. The Valen had learned to make their crystal structures stronger, mixing human engineering with their natural harmony. Min-hyuk wore captain's bars now, promoted after the battle that had cost them so much. He was one of only 31 human survivors from the original drop. Every morning he remembered the 169 soldiers who had not lived to see this peaceful sunrise. Captain Min-hyuk, a voice said behind him. He turned to see Q-Lin, the young Valen who had worked with Medic Heejin during the siege. The child was taller now, his crystal skin showing the deeper colors of approaching adulthood. Hello, Q-Lin. How are your studies going? Very well, sir. Dr. Choi says I have learned more about human technology in 1 year than most species learn in 10. The young Valen paused. Captain, today is the Memorial Day, is it not? Yes. 1 year since the final battle. They walked together toward the center of the city, where something beautiful and sad waited for them. The monument of falling stars rose 50 meters into the sky, made of crystal and steel twisted together in harmony. On its surface were carved the names of everyone who had died defending the city, human soldiers and Valen singers side by side. At the base of the monument, a simple inscription read, "They fell from the sky like angels of war, asking for nothing, giving everything. Someone has to. Someone did." The ceremony began at noon. Thousands of Valen gathered around the monument, their crystal skin glowing with colors of remembrance and gratitude. The surviving human soldiers stood at attention in their dress uniforms, each one carrying the memory of fallen friends. Elder Nixara, who had taken leadership after Veltara's sacrifice, spoke first. Her voice was carried by harmonic amplifiers throughout the city. 1 year ago, we thought we were alone in a hostile galaxy. We believed that strength meant taking what you wanted, and that kindness was weakness. Then strangers fell from our sky and taught us that real strength comes from protecting others, even when they cannot protect themselves. She gestured to the surviving humans. These people traveled across the stars to answer our call for help. They asked for nothing in return. Many of them died so that we could live. Today we remember their sacrifice. Tomorrow we honor it by becoming worthy of their gift. Corporal Park Jisoo, now Earth's first ambassador to the Valen, stepped forward to speak. She had learned to speak the Valen harmonic language fluently, and her words resonated with perfect pitch. "We came here as soldiers," she said. "We stayed as friends. The bonds formed in battle have become something greater, a partnership between two species who believe that someone has to stand up for those who cannot stand up for themselves." In the crowd, Dr. Choi Seojin watched with pride as Valen and human children played together around the memorial gardens. Over the past year, she had helped establish the first joint research facilities where both species worked side by side. The combination of human technology and Valen harmony had created wonders neither could have achieved alone. Medic Lim Hyejin, now director of the Kepler 442b Medical Exchange Program, treated her last patients of the day. The hospital combined human surgical techniques with Valen healing harmonies. Wounded beings from across the galaxy came here for treatment, drawn by stories of the place where two species had learned to truly work together. As she finished her rounds, she found Q-Len, waiting for her in the children's ward. He was teaching human orphans how to sing simple Valen songs while Valen children learned human lullabies. "How are they doing?" she asked. "Very well. The human children learn harmony quickly, and the Valen children love your mechanical toys. Miss Heejin, may I ask you something?" "Of course. Do you ever regret coming here? So many of your friends died. Your home is so far away." Heejin smiled. "Q-Len, look around you. See those children playing together? See how your people and mine work side by side now? This is why we came. This is what Captain Do-Yun meant when he said someone has to." Tech Sergeant Nam Wonho, now a major in the Joint Defense Force, monitored communications from his new command center. The past year had brought many changes to this sector of space. Word of humanity's intervention had spread throughout the galaxy, and the results were remarkable. "Sir," his Valen assistant reported, "we have received 47 requests for assistance this month. The Zelani are asking for help against raiders. The Theron Republic wants to establish trade relations. And the Krex are requesting a peace treaty." Nam leaned back in his chair. The Krex Dominion had been in chaos since the death of Overlord Zithkaran. Their rigid hive mind structure could not adapt to the loss of central leadership. Many Krex worlds had declared independence, while others had simply stopped fighting altogether. "What does Earth Command say about the peace treaty?" "Admiral Park says to negotiate from a position of strength. The main fleet arrives next week." As if summoned by those words, the sky above Lumencrest began to fill with ships. The Earth Defense Force fleet emerged from hyperspace in perfect formation, 200 vessels of every size and type. At their head was the flagship New Sol, carrying Admiral Park Sungwoo himself. But they were not alone. Ships from a dozen other species accompanied them, allies who had been inspired by the story of humans who fought for strangers. The galaxy was changing, and humanity had become the catalyst for that change. Admiral Park's shuttle landed in the Yai Central Plaza, where the surviving members of the 32nd Orbital Drop Division waited to greet him. The Admiral was older now, his hair gone gray, but his eyes still held the same determination that had sent them on this mission. "Captain Minhyuk," he said, saluting the young officer. "Report. Mission accomplished, sir. The Valen are secure. The Krex are in retreat. And we have established humanity's first extrasolar alliance. At considerable cost. Yes, sir. But worth every life we lost." Admiral Park nodded slowly. He walked to the Monument of Falling Stars and read the names carved there. So many good soldiers. So many young lives given for strangers they had never met. "Sir." Q-Len approached nervously. He had been practicing his English for this moment. "Admiral Park, I am Q-Len. I worked with your medic during the battle. I remember the reports mentioning you, young man. You helped take care of our wounded." "Yes, sir." "Admiral Park, I want to join your academy. I want to learn to be a human soldier." The Admiral smiled. "Son, you do not need to become a human soldier. You need to become a Valen soldier who fights, like humans do, for others who cannot fight for themselves." As the sun set over Kepler 442b, the memorial ceremony concluded with a moment of silence for the dead. But the day ended with celebration, not mourning. The plaza filled with music as human and Valen musicians played together, their different styles blending into something entirely new. Ambassador Park Jisu found herself standing next to Elder Nixara as they watched the festivities. "Nixara, what happens now? Where do we go from here?" The Valen leader's crystal skin shifted through colors of hope and determination. "Ambassador, 3 months ago, we received a distress call from a small species in the Vega system. They are being attacked by pirates. We thought, perhaps it is our turn to fall from the sky like angels of war." Jisoo smiled. "I think Earth Command would approve of that mission. After all, someone has to." "Someone has to," Nixara agreed. In the months that followed, joint human-Valen rescue missions became common throughout the galaxy. The 32nd Orbital Drop Division was rebuilt with volunteers from both species. They carried the same motto that had started it all: someone has to. The Krex Dominion eventually signed a peace treaty, agreeing to limit their expansion and treat conquered peoples with basic dignity. Other aggressive species began to reconsider their policies as well, knowing that somewhere in the galaxy, there were beings willing to fight for justice. Captain Lee Do-Yoon's final message, recorded just before the assault on the command bunker, became required study at military academies across human space. "We came here as strangers and found family. We came as soldiers and discovered what it means to be human. If anyone hears this after we are gone, remember that the strongest people are those who use their strength to protect others. Someone has to stand up for those who cannot stand up for themselves. Today, that someone is us." Years later, when other species asked humans why they fought for strangers across the galaxy, the answer was always the same. Sometimes it was given with weapons in hand, standing between innocents and those who would harm them. Sometimes it was given with tools and medicine, helping rebuild what war had destroyed. Sometimes it was given with extended hands, offering friendship to those who had never known kindness. But the answer was always the same. Someone has to, and someone always did.